Hi friends, it's Lisa Hetrick, illustrator for Gina K Designs, and I'm so grateful you could join me today. I have a really fun card project I want to share with you today that's super simple. We're going to be creating some layers, and we're going to use these purples and violets and yellows to create this fall inspired look. And I'm going to be using my stamp set with Gina K Designs called Bloomin Wild, and we're going to use the dies as well. I also have a little bonus lesson where I'm going to share how to make this cute little butterfly with two of the blooms from the Bloomin Wild stamp set. So let's do a quick look at the supplies, and all of the supplies will be listed below in the description as well. I've got some foam squares here and some Gina K Designs Connect glue. I have two white pens. I'm probably going to be using the Uniball Signo white pen. I have some purple tape and my stamping blocks, and here are the inks that I'm going to be using to create that fall color palette. So starting off with the purples, I have Edible Eggplant, Wild Wisteria, and Lovely Lavender. I have Jelly Bean Green, and I have Wild Dandelion. I'm using Gina K Designs cardstocks. I have some layering white cardstock that I'm going to be stamping everything out on and then die cutting. I have a piece of Kraft cardstock cut to an A2 sized card. And let's go ahead and take a look at the stamps and dies that I'm going to be using today. I'm using the Bloomin Wild stamp set and the companion dies for this project. I'm going to be using the smaller bloom and the tag, and we're going to match them up with the coordinating dies. So let's go ahead and get started. The first thing that we're going to do is stamp out all of the blooms and the elements for the card front. So I'm starting out with some Lovely Lavender, and I'm using the bloom that is the solid. So there is a bloom here that's a two-step stamping bloom in the set, and so I'm using that. I started out with the Lovely Lavender, and now I'm stamping over top with the line art bloom in the Wild Wisteria, just to get that extra layering of texture and dimension. I've got the center of the floral here that I'm going to stamp down in the Edible Eggplant, and that's going to draw our eye and our attention to the center of this bloom, and it'll all make sense once we start to stamp out the other little blooms that I'm going to stamp some of them in the Edible Eggplant. So that color is going to help draw our eye to the center of that floral. But first I'm going to use the larger bloom, and I'm going to stamp it in the Wild Wisteria. So I'm stamping them out twice, and this bloom in the set comes with two versions that goes in two different directions. And now I'm going to stamp the smallest bloom in that Wild Wisteria, and I'm going to stamp that twice as well, because we're going to have these two blooms that are opening up, kind of flanking the larger bloom that's in the center. Now I'm going to go ahead and take my leaf element and just stamp that out in the Jelly Bean Green. And then I'm going to grab that tag banner element and just go ahead and put that on the block here and ink that up in the Wild Dandelion and stamp that out as well. I love the solid impression that this makes. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and move on and die cut out all of the stamped elements. So I'm just grabbing the companion die set and just lining everything up with the stamped elements. And I'm going to use my purple tape just to put a little bit of tape down on the die just to hold it down before I run it through my die cutter. I use the Platinum 6 die cutter. You can use whatever you have and what you're comfortable with. These dies work brilliantly in all die cutters. So love that. Going to go ahead and run that through. And here are all of the elements that are die cut. I really love these dies because they finish off the edges and they make them really, really smooth. Okay, so now let's go ahead and move on to assembling the card. I've got my A2 sized piece of Kraft cardstock, And we're just going to go ahead and start by putting all of the stamped elements on top of the card. And I'm just going to layer. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to grab the yellow tag element and I'm going to put a little bit of glue on that. I'm not going to pop that up. I'm going to have that be layered right onto the cardstock, and I'm just kind of noodling with it. Using the Gina cake glue, you can kind of move it around a little bit. I kind of want it to be in the center, and I'm just popping up the little flags at the bottom just to give a little more dimension. And I've got some foam squares that I put on the back of the bloom, and I'm just going to go ahead and layer that in that top third. The bloom has a little bit of dimension with that foam squares, with the foam squares underneath it. So that's going to allow me to put the blooms, the other blooms, underneath it and just kind of position them and flank them over from the left to the right. So I've kind of got an impression of how I would like to lay them out, and I'm just going to put a little bit of glue on the back of each one of them and then just nest them in behind the big bloom that's in the center. Now, using the foam squares gives you opportunity to kind of nest anything underneath it. So it just gives you the height in order to get some elements up underneath it. So it looks a little bit wonky right now, but that's okay. I'm just going to go ahead in and put my leaf elements. And I did forget to stamp that second leaf element, so I stamped that off camera and die cut that out so that I would have one on the left and the right. So I'm liking the way this looks. I'm just using my finger here to pop up the leaf elements and just give this card a little bit of extra texture and dimension. So now I'm going to go ahead and move on to the finishing touches. And I've grabbed the dot element that's in the stamp set, and I'm just going to stamp it around the flower just to kind of complete the design. And it's got this wonky polka kind of feel to it. It really adds another layer of texture and dimension, and it's just delightful. So I'm adding some little dots with my Uniball Signo white gel pen. I love this gel pen. It's consistent every time, and it really is a very bright and bold white. So I'm just going around the whole design and just kind of placing some dots. I've got some dots in the center of that flower too. That's going to help draw the eye to the center of this floral card, since we're not using a sentiment on this card. I'm really loving the way this looks. Oh, I love it. Okay, so here's our bonus lesson. I want to talk about how you can use the two small blooms in the Bloomin Wild Stamp set to create this super cute little butterfly. Okay, so we've got two blooms in the set that go in two different directions. And when you pull them together and stamp them together, you can create the look of this super cute little flower butterfly. So I'm going to go ahead and show you that. So I'm stamping down the first bloom, and I'm kind of got this little angle to it. So you can see that one side of the bloom looks a little bit like a wing. Now I'm going to go ahead and stamp the second bloom down right next to it and just line it right up so that we've got that look and feel of that beautiful little butterfly. Now you can fussy cut this out and you can have another embellishment for your card, or you can just stamp it straight down onto your cardstock. I've just kind of noodled around with it a little bit to see if it could fit on the card design, and I could easily put this little embellishment on this card, but I'm going to keep it off to the side and use it for another project. I am really loving the way this card came out. I love the fall inspired colors, and it's got a whimsical look and feel that I love. Okay, so don't forget that I have a sketch idea and free download. The link is in the description. So if you've picked up the Bloomin Wild stamp set, I have 8 card ideas for you in this sketch idea sheet. So don't forget to go ahead and grab that free download. The link is in the description below, and I know you will love it. I hope you enjoyed today's card tutorial and bonus lesson. It brings me great joy to create these tutorials for you. I have so much fun. And here's another look at the Bloomin Wild Stamp set and companion die set that you can pick up at Gina K Designs. All of the links for this new release can be found below in the description. I can't wait to see what you create. Thanks so much for watching. Please consider sharing the joy by liking this video and subscribing to this channel. And I'm sharing more card and watercolor tutorial videos for your inspiration right here. So come on in and take a peek at my tutorials. I have a lot to share, and I'll see you next time.